Oh yeah. Some twists have come in, and it's about to hit the fan in this week's episode of Ray Donovan. This one is entitled Hispies. Why is it called that? We'll find out in a moment. But first, you're probably wondering in the library release, as well as the BitChute release, why do you see this new MA disclaimer at the beginning? This is going to be irrelevant, especially if this goes up on YouTube, but I have been reposting just about all of my Ray Donovan videos because of certain scenarios where I don't want children to take a look at the MA-rated show, which delves into a lot of heavy adult themes, but you kind of get the idea if you've watched my Ray Donovan videos, or let alone the show. But anyways, that's going to be around for future YouTube videos. But with that said, let's take a look at Hispies. At first I couldn't figure out how to pronounce this. I thought it was Hispes. Like, Hisp. But we'll find out what that word means in a moment. Well, anyways, the episode begins with Bunchy peeking at the shot boy in the hospital from the robbery and whatnot. As the wife leaves to try and get a drink from the vending machine, Bunchy helps her out, but then looks at him, and soon realizes that was the one that shot him. And she gets all mad and enraged and everything, and pretty much the wife is forced back. Bunchy sits, still in despair of what he's done, despite him being a hero about it. And other scenario being that a man walks into his light, handing him a card to this sort of AA-ish meeting. We don't know what it is at first, so I have to wait till later to see what it is. But later into the night, the FBI, police, or whatnot break into Ray, trying to find all this evidence and everything that's been hidden somewhere, especially after the whole photograph incident or whatever. But to no avail, they don't find it. And then continuing to where Terry's story is, he chose a bit from the camp and hangs out with the female that was brought into his life. If I could figure out her name in this list. But it was the female that we met at the episode, so probably don't need to explain a lot more details than that. It's the female. Or I just can't even remember her name because I don't write these down in time with the story. This is why I turn on the subtitles for this show, just so I'm able to write the names down and not forget. Because remember the longest time how I called Lena his PI, and it's just... Let's get back to the point. Terry basically relaxes with the member that brought him into the shaman and his camp. And then Smitty winds up returning to the offices to find Ray sleeping on the couch after the search warrant. And Smitty kind of gets Ray up and helps him out to try and clean out the office, because you know how the police can be. No, not all policemen are actually like this. Not trying to spout any hate against them. It's just common knowledge, you know. Smitty tells Ray about the relationship, but duty calls where Ray has where the card was actually taken into, because the woman from last week, I can't remember her name, which I think is Kevin's sister, so I'll say that, is that the SD card that Ray gave to the sister was actually handed over to the brother, which is a bit of a questionable situation that Ray now has gotten himself into. Then Ray visits Ferrati to try and get some information out of the mayor, but it just shoos him off, hands him a card, and be on his merry little way. Then from there, Daryl's mom basically comes in without knocking, very rude, and offers him a flight back to LA where he could work for some guy named Alan. Now this Alan is supposed to be Daryl's father. However, Daryl basically dismisses Alan as being his father because you know how Mickey Donovan is. But with that said, Ray receives a call about Jonathan Walker and stuck in this situation. Then Bridget winds up getting a call about this, and she springs onto the board to help out Jonathan Walker Hansen, the musician who's been framed for having herpes. Yes, we all know that infamous story on how herpes can be a dangerous little situation where it's not all a problem. Why I say it's not all a problem with herpes, take a look at the episode Adam Ruins Sex Ed. There's a segment in there where he talks about the whole, herpes ordeal, how it wasn't treated as, a big, major, oh my god, you have a disease! And more like, you have a disease? Oh, that's fine. But pretty much oh my god, a disease! Watch that episode. I'm not going to go into full detail about it. But yeah, Bridget goes on the case and brings Smitty in to fill in for John. A little bit of the whole Prince and the Pauper trading places ordeal. You know? Well, anyways, Bunchy goes to work where he has to sign this contract, this misinformed contract, where he has to say that the gun misfired, which wasn't true, as we've seen in the episode. And this leads to a questionable situation. I mean, he doesn't sign it immediately. He needs to think on it. Because one side or the next will be a benefactor. But that other latter surprise, you'll have to wait and find out. But yeah, Bridget takes Smitty in, they do the whole trading places situation, and basically they get John Walker out of there and protected in Ray's little office in the Tequila building. And actually, speaking of the Tequila building, his office is filled back to suppress his appearance, but I'll get to that story later on. Next comes in a story where Mickey's just chilling out in the place that he's now staying at, but as he's trying to get used to the new life, or he's just bored out of his skull. He overhears a conversation about this whole money ordeal and everything. About wiring properties and houses and yachts for people to stay in. And Mickey sees this as a gold mine, a golden opportunity to take advantage of such an ordeal. So, he calls Sandy with the idea, and the plan seems to be one that Sandy could think about. But not before Sandy says that she's willing to try on a new bathing suit while down there. Gotta be the best next character in the series, to be honest. At least she's got some good lines. With that said, we see Terry visit the shaman, and the shaman directs him to a book to where he reads an autograph from Simon Cowell. I don't need to explain who he is, you already know. Which the shaman's name is exposed to Terry. And Terry just walks off to a creek, finds some stones, attempts to commit suicide, but an elderly female that saw him earlier stops him in his tracks, and they both get into a friendly conversation, with her being in the scenario of treatments and weird infomercial-ish treatments, which didn't go over so well. But both Terry and this elderly female, she probably has a name, but again, I need to be able to read the subtitles while writing all this down, just because it takes time and it takes patience to know all these characters' names, which is not easy. And time to flip to the other half of the book, of this episode, in this journal, if I could get it to go. There we go. So, again, going back to what I said about the whole trading places ordeal and getting Jonathan out of there, out of the record building, into Ray's office, he returns the whole tequila building right there, suppresses, and John is kind of getting this idea of doing a little video on herpes, but calling it HISPS. Hispes. Trying to shorten the name of herpes. Trying to make it sound cool and hip towards the younger audiences who are a fan of his music. Not saying fans of Ray Donovan, but people who love his music. Now, Kevin's sister comes in, they both talk against one another, and she gives a bank key to Ray to try and grab this bag out of a little safe deposit. I don't remember these terms because I don't have, but I think it's a deposit box? I don't know. It's been a while since I last played Payday 2, so I wouldn't know. But returning back to this whole ordeal, Ray calls Sandy to do the job for him because of the whole, like, FBI and police thing. If Ray was caught in there grabbing that said stuff, the police could grab him and question. So, hence why Sandy's on the job. Daryl gets a call from Alan, which offers him a executive position at his workplace, making grands of monies. I think it was $75,000, I think. might have been $75,000 per year and working with big Hollywood talents if he returns to LA, that is. Will he take the offer, or will he say no? Well, anyways, let's see how the case is with Sandy. Well, she goes in perfectly fine to retrieve the bag, but in a subtle opportunity for the camera, Sandy peeks in and sees some gold coins with inside that deposit box, which gets her thinking of something. Now that she knows that Mickey is still alive, essentially, this gives Sandy a thought, which leaves her to steal the coins. And then Ray comes in subtly for a few seconds, and then they do the whole switcheroo, because she's got the bag hidden within the newspaper, and Ray has one as well. Swap places, Sandy is interrogated, and Ray basically hides himself, writing out a check and taking it to the teller, because checks are still a thing now, aren't they? Actually, when was the last time that a bank ever took checks? Or at least a business? I mean, haven't those places already phased out by this point? For Pete's sake, I mean, when I attended high school, they still taught checks. But truthfully, I'd rather be learning checks, or at least bring those back, compared to whatever's in this day and age. But you'd be surprised how many people still carry around checkbooks. I won't say who, but I definitely know somebody that ran into such a scenario. Back to the story. Basically, Ray, the whole switcheroo happens. Ray comes into Ferrari's bowling alley, gives him the deposits, and basically all is said and done so that Ferrari can go on and proceed with his whatever Sullivan building will be. I forget what it was, but I think it's like museum, office, might have been a museum. And then, speaking of the coins, Sandy visits Mickey, essentially taking, I guess, a flight down there to retrieve them and back. Sandy walks up to him, and basically Sandy brings up, "You know Sullivan?" "Yeah. I found these." And this kind of brings Mickey back to New York in this scenario that I'll explain later on. But first, these two plot lines, where basically Daryl tells Bunchy at his job about how he's offered this amount of money to return to LA to help out Alan, and Bunchy is still in like the I don't care phase. I'm just a regular human being. And then, after all is said and done, we see that Bunchy visits a... Wait, did I write this right? Oh dear. So it turns out that person from the very beginning that gave Bunchy the card, that's to a supremacist. I don't need to say anything else about them. They are... Never bring them up. We need to think of something else to call them. Project Mayhem. No. Project Mayhem. I don't know what to call it. I'll think of something. Just you wait. Well, anyways, back to the whole Mickey story. He returns to New York, visits Bunchy and Claudette, and greets her and talks to Daryl about this whole ordeal. And basically, Claudette tells Mickey to not bring Daryl on this, to which he does anyway, leading to Claudette to call Detective Perry and tell him, yeah, Mickey's still alive. Thus, the case is reopened again. The whole death was a hoax, and all is said and done. But to continue and proceed on how all of this will end. Basically, Ray visits his sister, offers him a drink. Ray can't drink since he is in therapy with Dr. Ammett, and she says that, the sister says that she likes Ray. Then Jonathan goes live and talks about the hisps. You already know what it means now. Bunchy decides by this point now to throw away that contract and join the GoldenEye cult. Yeah, but GoldenEye. We'll just call that group GoldenEye. He decides to join GoldenEye and throw the contract away for the whole scenario they brought up. But yeah, as that happens, the sister and Ray make out, and that's how it all ends. That's hisps. Oh boy. We're in it for it now. We aren't even 6 episodes in, and already we have a big twist going on. I mean, I thought that, big moment in the next week on Ray Donovan, because they kept showing this clip of Bunchy taking off some mask of some kind. I'm not going to say who the person is, because I'm not even going to say it. But pulls off the mask, and I mean, it looked like he was going to plan some revenge against the drugstore or something against the whole, Bunchy being set up for this whole ordeal with him being in despair and whatnot, decide to take revenge on the drugstore. But it's going in an entirely different route. The other thing is, what is Mickey's plan? I mean, we get the idea that he's going to do this whole, money wire fraud or whatnot with Sandy to try and pull all this off. How will Agent Perry feel about the fact that Mickey is still alive? And Terry and this elderly woman, how will they handle being with one another? Partially, it just feels like it's a match made in heaven for Terry, because he has a reason to live. I think. I know, he leaves the camp with her. So, we'll just have to see what happens with him. But then the other thought is, what does Mayor Ferrati have in store for Ray next week? And that is where the stinger will be next week. Now, next week will be episode 5, called An Irish Lullaby. I haven't taken a peek at what the plot is for next week's episode, but I definitely look forward to seeing what's going to happen. But if you have seen the episode, you like it, you hate it, you're in a shock for a big twist of what happens in the story, well, let me know down below. But with that said, I look forward to seeing the next week episode of Ray Donovan, and I bet you will as well, in this review style I've been doing for years. But, yeah, see you guys next week.